It is my honor to introduce our next speaker, Dr. Shirley Davis. And I am connected with Dr. Davis on LinkedIn, along with a zillion other people I know. But some of her content and her posts are so educational, motivational, inspiring. So I would encourage you to reach out to her on social media. Dr. Shirley Davis is an accomplished corporate executive, global workforce management expert, a certified leadership coach, and a master of reinvention. She works with leaders at all levels and has worked in more than 30 countries on 5 continents and delivers more than 80 speeches a year. She brings a high energy, high content, and a high value message to audiences all around the world. She has over 20 years of business experience in a variety of senior and executive leadership roles with Fortune 100 companies. She also served as the Vice President of Global Diversity and Inclusion and Workplace Strategies for the world's largest HR membership association. Who knows what that is altogether? SHRM, right? Dr. Davis's expertise lies in providing solutions and strategies for achieving leadership excellence. Dr. Davis has also been a featured expert on NBC's The Today Show, The Wall Street Journal, USA Today, CBS News, HR Magazine, Profiles in Diversity Journal, CNN.com, and Inclusion Magazine. She's somebody we need to be listening to, right? She is also a featured author of 2 popular LinkedIn learning courses entitled Leadership Foundations and Inclusive Leadership. She's the author of Reinvent Yourself, Strategies for Achieving Success in every, not just 1 or 2, but every area of your life, and The Seat, How to Get Invited to the Table When You Are Overperforming and Undervalued. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Shirley Davis.
Dear. What a pleasure to be here. Hello, how are you? Yay. Oh, I hear you are from all over the world. Where are those from outside of the United States? There you are. Welcome, welcome, welcome to beautiful Las Vegas. It's great to have you. Well, I'm going to get started. I know that you have some handouts in your book. I see that they were printed for you. It's an infographic, so I see too, it's in black and white. It looks prettier in color. But I will promise you this, if you'd like to have the color copy of the infographic, we'll make sure that you get that and you can download it for free and use that, because we want you to be able to take it back and really, really make this a personal experience. So I'm going to talk to you today about dreams and about how do you shift, how do you reinvent yourself given the era of disruption that we're living in. How many of you know that we got to continue to upgrade, enhance, upskill, reskill, reinvent? So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that because it's not always easy. How many of you would say you're living your life's dreams? Raise your hands. How many of you would say, yeah, I'm living the life that I always dreamed about? All 10 of you. No worries. I ask that question all over the world, and usually a few hands go up, but not enough. So let me ask it differently. How many of you would say that if I had to live my life all over again, I would do some things differently? There you are. Absolutely. So the question becomes, and I know that yesterday Peggy asked the same question as well, is if you had to live your life all over again, what would you do differently? The question becomes, what are you not doing now? Why are you not doing it? Why are you not living the life that you've always dreamed? So I'm going to ask you real quick to just throw out a couple of ideas. Why aren't you living your best life now? Not enough money. Right there, I heard it. What else? Time. I heard that in a resounding voice. What else? Resources. Fear. I heard fear. What else? Confidence. Courage. All the things that we've been talking about, right? So you had a segment yesterday on how do you build greater confidence. So you got a couple of strategies. I'm going to build on that, and I'll talk to you a little bit more about that as well. But don't feel bad, because there was a time when I was sitting in the audience as well, listening to wonderful, inspirational, motivational speakers, and they were asking the same thing, and I had the same response. I'm not living the dreams that I've always laid out. And what's interesting is for 15 years of my life, I would go away. I'd spend time with my family for the Christmas holiday, and then I'd go away at the end of the Christmas season, around, the end of either like Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. I'd go away and take my vacation time, and I would always go away by myself. And I'd spend 5 to 7 days, and I'd go somewhere tropical. So it had to be where the beautiful beaches were, where I could relax and rest. And I would go away, and I would just kind of think and reflect, and I would dream, and I would write those dreams down. And guess what? When I came back, what happened? Life, right? And all those dreams that I kept writing down year after year after year after year, I kept saying, one day, I'm going to do this. This is what's in my heart. This is my passion. If I just had enough money, if I had the right resources, if I had enough time. And how many of you know we all have the same amount of time? So what's the difference between those of us who are living our dreams with the same amount of time and those of us who are not? I'm going to submit to you that we have control of our destiny. And I'm going to walk you through a bit of how I did that as well, because life did happen to me. But I can stand here today to tell you that it took time, effort, energy, and a bit of money, a lot of support, and a whole lot of prayer in order for me to be able to say, yes, today I'm living the life of my dreams. You know what? There's 3 kinds of people in this world, and you probably heard that yesterday. What are those 3 kinds of people? Oh, good, you didn't hear it. So the 3 kinds of people that you can write down, and I hope that you assess kind of which ones of these are you. 3 kinds of people: those that make things happen, those that watch things happen, and those that wonder, what happened? Which one are you? Those that make things happen, those that watch things happen, and those that wonder what happened. And those that continue to wonder what happened are letting life pass them by, and they're figuring it out as they go, and they're just taking it one day at a time, que sera, sera, whatever will be, will be. Versus those who make things happen. One of my mentors used to say that good things come to those who wait, but only what's left over by those who hustled. So we got to get out there and hustle and make life happen, because how many of you know that life is not forever? So let's talk a little bit about our current reality. I recognize that we're living in this global society. We're living in this era of the 3 C's, right? It's in your notes. The 3 C's: accelerated change, overwhelming complexity, and increased competition. Constantly, business is changing. The world around us is changing. Our lives are constantly changing. And it seems like the pace of change is really accelerated. Things are happening really, really fast, especially with technology. As we know now, the world is flat, according to Thomas Friedman, who said that through the touch of a button, right, we can connect, collaborate, and compete with people all over the world. And yet, life is continuing to happen, and yet our dreams are not always happening as fast as life does. Yes, we're much more globally diverse. Yes, we're living in this VUCA world. And I know in the world of administrative professionals, executive assistants, and all of the support staff, we need you so much to help us to be able to manage in this VUCA world, a world of volatility, a world of uncertainty, a world of complexity, and a world of ambiguity. That's the reality of the world in which we're living. Yes, everything is being disrupted. Technology, digitization, automation, robotism, artificial intelligence, all of these things are shifting the way that we work, when we work, and how work gets done. Because how many of you know now, in the age of technology and in this gig economy, that it's not so much about where you go to work, but we know that work is not where we go. Work is what we do, and we can do it anytime from anywhere. How many of you would say, I shut down at the end of my work day at 5 or 6 o'clock and I don't pick my smart device back up? Okay, we got about 10 people. So the rest of us are controlled by technology, right? All right, how many of y'all are going to really be honest and say, it's on my nightstand when I go to bed, and it's the first thing I pick up in the morning? So life is changing. It's disrupting the way that we communicate, and even disrupting sometimes our sleep and our peace of mind. So we have a global reality shift that's happening. And so when we think about how are we continuing to reinvent ourselves, look at the world around us and recognize that those companies, those organizations, and those of us who don't reinvent ourselves, who don't innovate, we die. We become irrelevant, obsolete, and we can't compete. And oftentimes we will then cease to exist, right? So we know that when you look at companies who have not anticipated the signs of the change, they're not necessarily able to respond to change as well. There's no agility. They don't have no resistance or resilience at all. They're resistant to change. How many of you like change? And so the rest of us don't, right? In a changing world, accelerated change, we don't like change. I submit to you that only wet babies like change. Only wet babies like change. Most of us don't like change. Why? What are we afraid of? The unknown. What else? Why don't we like change? Not being able to keep up with the change. Because if I change, then by the time I change happens again. And then change happens again, right? We have to make it a lifestyle because that's how life happens. Why else don't we like change? Not in control, and we like to be in control. Why else? What is weird? Fear. Again, so fear is in the place of why won't we create and live the dreams that we always wanted to live, the life that we always wanted to live. But also fear is a big factor in why we don't like to change. A lot of us are very comfortable being uncomfortable with our comfort zones. We like to stay right where we are. We don't like change, right? We're comfortable, but you know what? At least I know what my uncomfortableness is. At least I know what my known hell is, right? I'm familiar with that. And some of us may be miserable. I find a lot of people that I have the opportunity to coach, by the time they get to me, they are miserable. They're on their jobs, they're in a relationship, or they just in life. They're not happy. And none of us will be truly fulfilled and truly happy if we're not living the dreams that we've laid out, if we're not walking in the passion and the purpose that we were called and created to do. So this is a reality in which we're living in. So we have to make sure that as we continue to shift and to change, that we recognize that the world around us is going to require that we define what is success. I can tell you that 20 years ago, success meant something totally different than it does to me today. I thought 20, 30 years ago when I was starting my career that success meant making a whole lot of money. That's all good, but how many of you know money doesn't buy you happiness? Money can't buy you love. Money can't necessarily buy you peace of mind, right? So you have to redefine what is success. I also thought that success was having the nicest car. Keeping up with the Joneses. How many of y'all try to keep up with the Joneses, right? We oftentimes do that until I found out, why am I keeping up with the Joneses? Because the Joneses are broke too. So I don't need to try to keep up. And then we spend money that we don't have to impress people that we don't like. Anyway, right? So we have to really think about, what does real success look like? I'm going to ask you to take a minute or so and write down right now today, what does success mean to you? For some people, like I said, it may be a lot of money. It may be having a great job. It may be having the best, biggest house. It might be having a great car. It might be health and wellness. It may just be your family. Everyone has different definitions of success. Write down for you, what are the 2 to 3 things for you that really mean a lot when you're talking about success? Because knowing what success means and what it looks like helps to drive how you make your decisions. It drives your direction in life. And it should be tied directly to your why in life as well. So when we're talking about redefining success, for me, and I think for many of us, is that oftentimes it gets redefined by life, by defining moments in our lives. How many of you have had defining moments in your life? Defining moments mean what? What happens in those defining moments? Change, yes, your paradigm shifts, your meaning in life changes, success definitions change. What else happens in those defining moments? What are some defining moments? Having a baby. What else? Getting married, getting divorced. What else? Going to college. Death of a loved one, death of a spouse, absolutely. These can be redefining moments. Let me share with you just a few of what mine were. This was a defining moment for me that a number of years ago, I worked in retail banking and I was the branch manager at the time. I was also the teller supervisor, and we had just opened. It was 9:02 a.m. and the bank had just opened. And I had just come from opening the door, and I stopped at the inventory closet to get a couple of supplies out, and in ran 3 masked gunmen. And because I was there closest to the door, they grabbed me. And they held me at gunpoint while one held me while the other 2 ran down the teller line and jumped over the teller line to get the money. And I remember hearing, as I saw this barrel looking down my eyes, down the eyeballs, I was looking at it. And he said, I said in here, if anyone moves, I'm going to blow her brains out. That's what I heard. And so I immediately hit the floor. And I'm a woman of faith, so I started praying. I don't know about what you would do, but I was praying. I didn't know what else to do. But I remember then the gun still right there on my back here. And then I remember a few seconds later, he's saying, I said, if anybody moves, I'm going to blow her brains out. Now, I'm down here on the floor praying, and I remember coming out of prayer saying, now who in here is moving? Because the man just said he was going to blow my brains out, right? So why are you going to shoot me? I'm not moving. Right, but I just, for me, it was a life-defining moment. I was facing death. And I realized that at any moment I could lose. And have you ever had your life flash in front of you in those kinds of near-death situations? And doesn't it make you rethink what is really important in life? It makes you redefine what is success. I remember another redefining moment for me in my life that made me think about how do I need to reinvent myself? Because you know what, this path that I'm on, if I had lost my life that day, I would not have accomplished half of the things that I wanted. I wouldn't have even been in a place where I would have been able to say I was truly fulfilled. At the time, I was in a bad marriage, right? I was working at a pretty good job, but I hadn't finished my education. I was still in the process of that. I was still just kind of moving up the corporate ladder in my career. So there was so much that I wanted to do, but there was so many things that I said I wanted to do that I was putting off. And it was in that moment that I started thinking, wow, if I had lost my life, what about those things that I was planning to do? Redefining success. So a couple of years later, I was riding in the car with a couple of girlfriends to a conference from Oklahoma back to Washington, D.C., but we had gotten as far as Wheeling, West Virginia. These are what the streets look like at 2 o'clock in the morning in Wheeling, West Virginia. How many of you have ever been to Wheeling, West Virginia? Right? Winding roads, no street lights, and back in that day, there were no cell phones. I was sitting in the back seat with my girlfriend while the other 2 were driving. 2 o'clock in the morning, they decided to switch drivers. There was some construction going on. There were some cement brick walls that were up, and there were those orange and white construction trash cans. I guess they were doing that little bit of that work in the middle of the night. So they changed drivers. As she was getting in the car and started the car back up again, she realized she did not put her seatbelt on, so she looked down and put her seatbelt on. As she looked down, she realized she was rearing into the cement wall. So she overcorrected and went down 20 feet of an embankment. We didn't know it was an embankment. The car flipped over 4 times. I was thrown out the back window on the 4th flip, head first, through the glass. And for 20 minutes, I'm telling you what they told me because I don't remember this. But for 20 minutes, they kept calling me, and I wasn't answering. I wasn't responding. The 2 that were in the front, one of them hit the windshield but didn't go through it because she had gotten her seatbelt on. The other one that was in the back seat with me, she actually was in the back with her seatbelt on. I just was the only one that did not have a seatbelt on in the back, and it wasn't a requirement at the time. So 20 minutes later, what they had found me like I had been thrown almost 50 feet from the car, over in a grassy area somewhere with blood everywhere, glass everywhere, and was unconscious. I ended up being unconscious in a coma for the next 18 hours in the hospital. But when I came to, I was bandaged up everywhere. All my clothes had been cut off. This is one of those remembrances of I thought, okay, my mama did tell me always wear clean underwear, because they literally had to cut it all off, right? So I woke up with just the hospital robe on. But I remember being in a hospital, though, wrapped in bandages everywhere. I had concussions. Glass was enlarged in my head. It was enlarged all in my body. I had stitches everywhere. I had cuts, bruises, scars. And I stayed in the hospital for a few days, and then they let me out, and my parents were able to, I was able to go back and stay with my parents until I was able to recuperate. Near-death experience. So my question became, why? Why did I survive when some others don't? Why am I still here? What is it that I'm supposed to do? It made me think about, then, what is my purpose in life? Okay, I've been through a bad bank robbery, near death. I've now just been in a car accident, near death, and I can remember asking God those questions of what's my why? What's my dream? What do I want to do with my life? Why do you keep sparing me, right? So that was the thing that really started to push me to reinventing my life. I remember weeks later, as I was still walking around, I couldn't take showers, but when I finally could take showers, I remember glass just dislodging from my skin. It was literally just real sharp it was just coming out of my skin because it had been embedded in there. And I remember that after that, this is what the car looked like. When I had an opportunity to go back and take a look at the car to even see, how did I survive this? But I'm really thankful that I did, but I also recognize that in life, we all have challenges. I went through bankruptcy. I had bad financial issues. I was robbing Peter and then robbing Paul. I know some of y'all robbed Peter to pay Paul. I couldn't pay Paul. So I robbed Peter and then robbed Paul, right? I couldn't pay my bills. I was living on the edge. I was living on credit cards. I had student loan debt built up at the time. I had a small daughter. I was a single mom now, had just gone through a divorce. So all hell had broke loose in my life. How about you guys? Ever had hell break loose in your life? Ever had life happen? And it seems like it all comes at one time. And it makes you think about, why is this happening? But then I had to flip the script, shift the paradigm, change my mindset and say, why not me? There must be something about me, something about you that when life happens, that we're able to then see the light at the end of the tunnel, that we're able to walk through it. I always say, if you're going through something, that means you're going to something. And you have to recognize that if you can just hold on, if you can just be faithful, if you can just look at it from a very positive outlook, that life will get better. I went through the divorce. I got through the financial bankruptcy and all of the financial devastation. And then I went through the job switches, the job changes, unemployment, losing jobs, going from this job to that job, not being appreciated, not being valued, working hard, working long hours, and not getting the promotions that I deserved. But then we all get older. Life happens, right? I turned 50 a few years ago, and I know I'm looking 30 and I feel 20. It's all in the mind. It's just a number, right? I don't look 50, do I? Thank you. I have a 25-year-old daughter, and I love it when we're out and about, and they say, y'all look like sisters. I told my daughter, look, don't hate it's life. You'll get there one day, too. You'll appreciate it. But when you have these setbacks in life, when you have these disappointments in life, we have to then continue to move forward, recognizing that this is what life is. It happens to all of us. And see, life is not what happens to us, it's what we do, how we respond to what happens to us. And so you have to think about, what does success mean to you? Going through the experiences you went through, yes, loss of loved ones, going through depression, anxiety, going through all kinds of devastation. What then did you learn from it? Because when we don't learn from life situations, guess what? We repeat them. It continues to happen. But what I started to learn in all of those is that, one, I am stronger than I thought I was. And that, two, there is something greater that's coming as a result of all of these. And that, three, I'm going through this because there's somebody that's coming across my path that I'll be able to share how I was able to get over that obstacle. And I'm designed to help someone else be better. I'm designed to help somebody else get through those life's challenges. And so I want you to think about, then, where are you going to be 2 years from now? Where do you want to be 5 years from now? What will life look like to you? What do you need to do differently? So when I would go away for those 15 years, writing out my dreams and thinking about life and reflecting on that year and what do I want to do the next year, one of the things I kept writing down is that one day I really want to be able to speak to people all over the world. And I know that my mission and my purpose in life is to help people get out of their head and step into their greatness. I know that one of my callings and my gifts and my talents is that I'm supposed to help people get a larger vision for themselves. That I'm supposed to help them to go from being stuck to being unstoppable. So all of those things that were coming to get in my way, those obstacles, were blocking me from you. I went through all the things that I went through because I had assignments. I had specific callings. I had people who were going to come across my path that I was going to be able to help them get through financial devastation, get through career setbacks, get through relationship breakups and breakdowns, get through life's disappointments, get through near-death experiences, to be able to tell them you can make it. It's going to get better. Just keep your head up and just know that if you continue to look forward, if you continue to see what is the lesson out of this, you'll get better. One of the things that I learned, and I continue to repeat this, is that in life, we have to use leverage. And I have learned how to leverage the lessons, leverage the losses, and leverage the leftovers. See, in every situation, no matter how bad it got, there were some leftovers. There was something for me that was left over for me to learn, to springboard to my next level. There was a lesson that I learned. It's like, okay, you know what? That wasn't the right kind of person to be around. That's not the right kind of relationship you want to be in. That's not the right kind of job. It was a life lesson. So you have to learn how to leverage the lessons, the losses, and the leftovers. So when we reinvent ourselves, recognizing that organizations do this all the time. How many of you work in companies right now where they've gone through changes, they're reinventing themselves, and they're innovating? And that's going to be a constant. But what I find, though, is a lot of times organizational leaders will call me in, and they want me to help them train their staff on how do you change. How do we change? We want to innovate. We want to go to the next level. We're thinking about our strategic plan 5-10 years from now, but we have so many people who are stuck and they don't want to change. They're resistant to the change. And I submit to you that oftentimes when we stay in our comfort zones and we stay, and even in our known hells, that there's an unknown heaven. But when we walk in fear, we oftentimes are afraid to see what's behind door number 2. We oftentimes are afraid to take a risk and to see what can happen, what's possible, what are the next steps, what can I learn from this, and what can I do different. So I say when we reinvent ourselves, we've got to adopt new skill sets and new mindsets and new ways of thinking, and we got to adapt new approaches and certainly new practices. Because the skills today and the competencies today and the behaviors today are shifting and changing. Why? Because the world is changing. It's changing demographically. It's changing economically. It's changing politically. Your customers, your consumers, your clients, your members, your donors, your partners, they're all changing, and they're expecting and demanding different things from different companies, different services. But they want to be treated with respect and valued, and that is subjective. Because when we have now, the demographics show 51% of the global workforce now made up of women. 54% of the U.S. workforce will be made up of people of color in the next 10 years, by 2030, 54%. We already have 5 generations working alongside each other right now. 54 countries have non-discrimination laws on LGBTQ, and we're still fighting and trying to figure it out. How do we all get along? How do we lead across all of these differences? This is our realities, and we have the opportunity in the roles that you have as administrative professionals and the way that you help drive business. I have one, and she is absolutely phenomenal. She does just about everything. She is my thinker. She is my strategist. She is my architect. She's my visionary. She keeps me on track. And I know that I could not be successful without her. And I know how important it is to organizations that every single person in the organization has a key role to play in helping the company to reinvent itself. So I want us to think about, too, as the world continues to change, some things shouldn't change. Some things should not change. We should continue to remain specifically relevant, right? Knowing that, yes, we got to adapt new skills and new approaches and new practices, but we've got to remain relevant. And yes, in this VUCA world, in this era of disruption, we have to remain resilient. The ability to bounce back. All of the stuff that you go through, life's obstacles, all of the triumphs that we experience comes from a test. And we have to remain resilient. If I had not bounced back, what if I had just stayed in a pity party and said, woe is me? What if I had just decided I was just going to just give up and just say, forget it, I don't want to live anymore? All these scars, All these wounds that were left on me. I had scars up here. They went away. But I didn't think they would at the time. Who's going to look at me? I'm not attractive. Scars. I still have some of them today that you can't see. I've got one that goes down here. But now what I look at it as a badge of courage. I look at it as a badge of determination. I look at it as, yes, this is something that I went through, but now I've got the proof that I'm an overcomer. We also have to remain not only resilient and not only remain relevant, but we've got to remain marketable. There are skills that each and every one of us has. There are talents and gifts that each and every one of us brings to every organization and to every situation that we have. How do you continue, though, to market yourself? How many of you know that you are your brand ambassador? And if you're not, you should be. Every single person in here has a brand. Every person. You know what a brand is? A brand is the message or the reputation that other people know about you. A brand is the way that you carry yourself. What do people know about you when you're around them, but what do they say about you when you're not in the room? That's your brand. We've got to stay marketable. And the more that we learn, the more that we grow, the more that we get new skill sets, the more that we develop ourselves and invest in ourselves like we're doing here at the conference, the more that we can remain marketable. Knowing that the world is changing, new skills are required. We're looking for, as we look at now, the world change, more technology, right? Those skills are key and critical. And recognizing that change requires us to be flexible. We've got to be adaptable. We got to be agile. That's a key word that I keep hearing from leaders, even in organizations, is I want my workers, I need my staff to be more agile. I need them to be more flexible. And then I say to the leaders, well, they need you to be flexible too. That goes both ways. I get that. So let's think about this, right? How many of you would say in here today, I do know my purpose in life? Again, look around, not enough hands. I ask that question all over the world where I go. I ask it for people that are senior levels. I ask it for people at all levels in the organization, and less than 10% of the hands in the room go up. So what does that mean then if many of us can't say we really know what our purpose is? So some of you who did say you know what yours is, how did you find it? How did you find your purpose for those who say, yeah, I know mine? What did you do? Okay, so you kind of explored your passion. Others, how did you find your why or your purpose? Through trials. That didn't work, or this is something that did work. Yes, what else? Faith. What else? Meditation. Good, so one of the things I'm hearing is that it's important for us at least to go back to our Creator. Have faith, or it's a spiritual thing, right? Because we were all created by someone, right? You believe that. But we were created and fearfully and wonderfully made, so we're not mistakes. I agree with Peggy. What she said yesterday is that we all come here with a purpose, and we were born for such a time as this. This generation needs us. You weren't born in the 1600s. You weren't born in 500 BC. We were born in the 1900s, and some of us in the 2000s. But that's because there's something that our Creator believed and put inside of us and designed us with the skills, the talents, and the gifts, so that what it is that we have, this generation needs it. It's our responsibility, it's our obligation to give to this generation what we have. So I want you to think about what is your purpose. If you could write it down right now, let's say this. If you had all the money in the world, all the resources that you needed, and you knew that you couldn't fail and fear was not an issue, what would you do? Write that down. All the money in the world, all the resources that you need, you couldn't fail. Fear's not an issue. What would you do? Let's say you won the lottery tomorrow. You hit it for $766 billion. How many of you, if you did hit the lottery, would leave your jobs tomorrow? And what that means to me is that you're not necessarily doing what you absolutely love to do. And it's not a bad thing, but it holds you up to where you are right now until you're next. All of us have a next, right? It's called chapter 1. It's called chapter 2. It is our next, our new season. All of us have that. I worked jobs for years, and it was jobs that were paying my bills, and they were helping me to take care of my family, but they weren't the things that made me excited every day to get up to go to work until I found what I was doing. And if I hit the lottery tomorrow, I'd take care of my family, I'd take care of a great few friends, I'd go all around the world and travel, but I would be doing exactly what I'm still doing. So you wrote down your purpose. You wrote down if you had all the money in the world and couldn't fail, what would you do? Two of the most important dates in our lives are what? Day you were born and the day you die. So I agree. Two most important dates. One of them is the day you were born. But I would submit to you that the day you die is too late. How about the day that you find out why? Because when you find your why is when you start living the life that you were always designed to live. One of the things that I've realized in all of the things that I've been through is that when I started looking at my life, I did not want to have any regrets. And one of the ways that you find out your purpose is to always think about what would I want someone to say about me when my time, my expiration, my transition from this world comes. What would I want them to say? Would you want them to say that I was the best administrative professional that there ever was? Would you want them to say she worked 50 to 60 or he worked 60 to 70 hours a week? Would you want them to say that he or she made all this money? What would you want them to say? See, most people die at age 30, but they don't get buried until age 85. That's tweetable. They die at age 30, but they don't get buried until age 85. I find that too many people are going through life without their why, not understanding their purpose, not living their passion, but every day they're looking for meaning or they're trying to find it in all the wrong places. Not feeling a level of significance, not feeling a level of fulfillment. And then you get in your 60s and you get in their 70s, and sometimes we have all these regrets. Or sometimes we don't have the ability to do it anymore. We've gotten too old, or maybe we're not able to move as fast as we wanted to, or get things done. Our capacity diminishes. So I submit to you that many times, and I've heard this from one of the best leadership gurus I've studied, Dr. Miles Monroe, says the richest place on earth is not the oil fields of Saudi Arabia. It's not the diamond mines in South Africa, but it's the cemetery. Because in the cemetery, so many dreams. It's books that were supposed to be written that never got written. Songs that were supposed to be sang that never got sang. Some of you may have had the invention, the cure. You may have had some things that you were supposed to create that we needed, and you haven't done that yet. So where you don't want to end up is at the end of our lives, because we haven't reinvented ourselves, that we have these regrets of the woulda, coulda, shoulda syndrome, and one day and we never did. So I'm going to ask you to pick one of these questions. In the Reinvent Yourself workbooks that we have with the book, it's an accompaniment to the book. There's 20 questions that I usually ask when I'm coaching clients on life coaching or career coaching. And I find that these are really tough and hard for them. These are not questions you have in your workbook, but I just want you to pick one. And in your notes section, I want you to answer one of these. I find it really tough for many of my clients to even answer the first 5. They get really stuck. And the reason for that is because oftentimes we're making so many other dreams come true that we don't focus a lot of times on our own. That life just happens and it's happening so fast, we don't take the time to stop and think and reflect and introspect on these things that for us would drive our own destinies. What do you define in life? We already talked about success. What do you value most in life and why? What's your motto in life? What do you see yourself? Where do you see yourself in 5 years from now, 10 years from now? What are you most proud of? What legacy do you want to leave behind? Thinking about some of these questions. And again, if you want these, I'm happy to share these with you as well. When we're reinventing ourselves, not only do we need to redefine success, not only do we need to reassess our purpose and our vision, but we also need to reprioritize our goals. Because some goals are outdated. Goals that we had 10 and 15 years ago might need to be upgraded, might need to be enhanced. Oftentimes, when I think about people's dreams, I find this to be true, is that most people fail at achieving their dreams and goals, not because they aim too high and hit, but because not because they aim too high and miss, but because they aim too low and hit. Most people fail at accomplishing their dreams and goals, not because they aim too high and miss, but because they aim too low and hit. So I want you to think about, what are the goals that you set for your life? Your goals should be attached to your life plan. I'm not a big believer on New Year's resolutions. Let me do this quick poll, because this is what research says. How many of us do we set our New Year's resolutions at January 1 or December 31st? New Year's resolutions. Where you at? Where you at? We all set New Year's resolutions. Yes. And what research tells us is by February 14th or Valentine's Day, about 50% of those have already been broken. Right? Because we set these unrealistic goals, and sometimes we set them while we were tipsy. We at the party. Right? I'm going to lose 20 pounds by Valentine's Day. Haven't lost 20 pounds in 10 years. And we don't do anything to help us accomplish the goal, right? So that requires you to get up in the morning and go work out. It requires you to do some movement, right? It requires you to change your lifestyle of eating, or it requires you to think healthy, right? So it requires you to do some different things. And then what research tells us is that by April 15th, nearly 70 to 80% of them have been abandoned. So I am big on not creating goals that will set us up to fail. Set a life plan. See, I had a life plan even though I kept writing these goals and these dreams down every year when I would go away. At least I was thinking about it. At least I was writing it. I had this goal. I had these dreams that I was thinking about. And every year for December 31st or January 1st, I'm not setting New Year's resolutions. I'm setting goals to accomplish my life plan. Where do I want to be by the end of the year? Where do I want to be in 2 years? Where do I want to be in 5 years? How am I going to get closer? See, every year that you do that, now I'm 50, then I'll be 60, then I'll be 70, because ultimately I want to have lived the life that I always dreamed about. But you got to plan to be successful. You got to set goals for your entire life. I'm a big believer that it's not good enough to be successful on your job and be broke. I'm big on it's not enough to have all the money in the world and not be healthy. It's not enough to have a great, great career, have wonderful success in your job and money, and maybe even you're healthy, but maybe you're personally miserable. So I'm a big believer that when you set goals, even in your life plan, every year I would go away, and I still do it religiously, is that I set goals in every area of my life. What are your family goals? What are your personal relationship goals? What are your health and wellness goals? What are your career goals? What are your financial goals? And what are your spiritual or religious goals? Or whatever that is, it might be your faith. You need to be in whole success mindsets, not just in one area. Because when we talk about success, and I say redefining success, to me, that is about every area of my life. I want to be healthy. I want to have a mindset that is crisp and sharp and clear. I want to make good decisions. I want to have great relationships. I want my career to be aligned with all of those things. Yes, money is important, but I don't need to be a millionaire and still be a public success and a private failure. You want to have whole success. So I challenge you to think about it in those 5 areas. And if you set your goals, you always have to think about the end in mind, right? So I started out talking about, where do you want to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now? How many of you died at age 30 but waiting to age 85 to get buried? Think about the end in mind. What do you want people to say about your life, the life that you lived, the impact that you had, the difference that you made while you were here? That's what I did. And then you back up. It's the same habit that we talked about in 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Start with the end in mind. What do you want it to look like? Don't we always ask this question? What does success look like? Well, let's ask that question to ourselves. What does success look like for me? What does success look like in my life? So when we talk about our goals, they need to be aligned with our purpose. And everything that we do, because it will drive every decision that you make. There are jobs that I did not take because it was not aligned with my purpose. It didn't fit my personal vision and my goals in life. There are certain relationships that I either didn't get involved in or I had to hurry up and cut them because I recognized they were not aligned with my purpose and my goal and where I was going. That's key and critical. So when you don't know your why and you don't know where you're going, any path will take you there. So important to align your goals with your purpose. And when you reprioritize, one of the things that we have to do is recognize that in life, life gives us signs and signals. And life tells us when we need to stop and don't do it anymore. I got married, and I'm so glad that I took a U-turn. And I never looked back. There are some jobs that I had taken, and I said, this is not the right fit. And you got to make a detour. You got to look at life like a GPS system, that things happen to us in life that allows us to see some signals and some signs along the way. And it's okay to recalculate. It's okay to say, you know what, I've got to course correct. This is not working. So look at life signs and reprioritize your life and your goals according to the things that life is showing you. So when you know your purpose, what research has told us, that when we know our purpose, that there are some outcomes. There are some specific things that we'll see. We are much more likely to be creative, much more likely to come up with great solutions to problems. We're not only healthier, we're happier, we're more productive, and even we're more impactful. And I would even say less temperamental, more patient, more understanding. I can't tell you that when I found my purpose in life and when I started living my dreams after I had reinvented myself, I wake up every day with an excitement, with a smile. I'm excited to go to work. I don't know if you know this, but what the American Medical Association reports is that on Monday morning, most heart attacks happen between 8 and 10. Because people are getting over their weekend, having a great time away from the job, and now they're reminded that at 8 o'clock I got to get up and go to this job that I can't stand, that I'm miserable. Most heart attacks happen between 8 and 10 Monday morning. For me, when I get up, I am excited every day at what I do. No matter how stressful and strenuous it can be, I know that. But I know at the end of the day, I am doing what I'm called to do, and it's worth it because I am seeing the impact that it has on so many. The other piece about reinventing yourself, you hear a lot of re. So now we have to reevaluate our relationships. How many of you know that there are some people in your lives that you probably need to cut? There are some friends you need to unfriend. There are some connections you have that you need to block. The question is, why don't you? Why haven't you? We got to reevaluate our relationships. This is key and critical, and I heard us talking about that yesterday, right? Who are your 5 closest people in your network? Who are the ones that you allow to speak into your life? Who are your board of advisors? Every one of us should have some board of advisors. But let me tell you who your board of advisors should be, though. It really should be people who are healthy for you. People who speak into your life and they can say, you go girl, you go boy. Yes, they can say, that big, hairy, audacious goal, that's something you can do. I can help you. I can support you. What do you need from me? You don't want people in your life that constantly say, girl, you know you can't do that. I know where you came from. Girl, you know you ain't got no money. You don't have the resources to do that. Do you know how much that's going to take? You don't want those kind of people in your life. You want to have people around you who are more successful than you, who have been there, done that, got the t-shirt. When I started out, knowing that I wanted to speak and train and coach and consult, I got around people who had been doing it for years and who had made millions at it. I got around the Les Browns, and I got around some of the Willie Jollies, and I looked at the Tony Robbins, and I studied the Zig Ziglars. I studied all of those who had done this and done it well because I did not want to be around hundredaires. I wanted to be around millionaires. That was my role. My goal was to not be broke for the rest of my life. I knew what it was to be broke. And once I got out of debt and walked myself out of that situation, it took me almost 10 years. But I got my power back. And I got around people who were respectful, people who were caring, people who could speak life into my life. And one of the things you heard yesterday, which is so true, is that you will make somewhere between $5,000 to $10,000 of those who are closest to you. If you are the smartest one in your group, you need to get a larger group. If you are the A and you keep hanging around C's, unless it's a coaching, mentoring situation, you need to get a larger group because you're not going to bring them up, they're going to bring you down. And we need to have a personal board of advisors of people who are not afraid of your big, hairy, audacious goals. So I always tell people, get rid of the NIOPs, the negative influences of other people. And you need to surround yourself with only quality people. So think about it, and you wrote this down yesterday. You wrote down who are those 5 people. Do you need more? Who else do you need to include as your personal board of advisors? And as I start to shut it down, I want to really just share a little bit around how to get your personal power back. Because the one thing that we do is we allow other people sometimes to have control over who we are, how we think of ourselves, and the value that we place on ourselves as well. I remember one of my worst bosses, which was one of my worst career experiences. And one of the things that he used to always do was talk down to me. I could never get things right. I always made mistakes, which was funny because then he always took all the credit. And then I would get all the blame. And he would always share with me feedback that was a surprise, that was not substantiated. Well, if you just do this, if you just do this. And it was pretty deflating. I remember one time I was working for a boss, senior executive, head of HR, and he picked me to be in this position that never got posted, and I didn't even know what the job description was. He called it special projects. The problem with that was I thought that it was because I was working so hard because I was working my butt off. And I thought that he was like, well, we just got to find a space for her somewhere. Turns out that I later found out that the company had gotten sued and settled a multi-million-dollar class action lawsuit, and that they needed to hire more people of color that looked like me, and that I was pretty much a token. And I didn't like feeling like that because when I was working in the organization on these special projects, they called me and they said, they used to call me and say certain things to me like, how did you get that job? What did you have to do? That job was never posted. We didn't get an opportunity to post for it. What is it that you're really doing? I didn't know. Because he told me, oh, you know what, just go and write a job description and figure it out. I didn't like that. So after 6 months, I decided that, you know what, I'm going to have to leave this company. This was a necessary ending. Because I knew that if I left that department and went somewhere else, what was going to happen? I was going to be blackballed the rest of my career at that company. This was the head of HR. So I went to another company, and they were hiring, and they were paying much, much bigger salaries. So I was able to go get that job, and when I walked into his office, and I said to him, you know, I really appreciate the opportunity. I've been here now for several years. I only worked for him for 6 months in that position before I decided I couldn't do it anymore, but I knew I had to leave the company. And so I said to him, I went and applied for another job at another company. It's paying almost $25,000 more. How many of y'all would have taken that job too? Paying almost $25,000 more. And I said, I'm giving you my 2 weeks notice today, but I really appreciate the opportunity. I just think this is a better fit for me. And instead of saying, I'm happy for you, I understand, you know, we can't meet that salary, go ahead and, you know, much success to you, what he said to me was, you are so ungrateful. And he said, I will never do this again. He said, I gave you an opportunity. And he said, now you've messed it up for every other black person coming after you. That's what he said. And he said, today is not your last day. Today is your last day. I'll need your 2-week notice. Get out of my office. And I did what all of us would have did. I called my mama. I called my mama and I bust out crying because I didn't, you don't let them see you cry. So I held it in, and then I called my mama. And my mama was one of those women of faith, and she was like, look, that's not how I raised you. She was like, you are kind, you are smart, and you is important. Sometimes you got to call your mama and let your mama talk you off that ledge, but this was a situation where this person had taken my power from me. This person had caused me, even that other boss that I was telling you about that gave me these poor ratings and took away a lot of the work that I was doing, and she was taking the credit for it, and then I had it with this other guy as well. We have those situations in life all the time. And you got to know when it's time to, as I say, necessary endings. Sometimes certain relationships, certain situations you're in has an expiration date. Everything is not meant to be forever. There are some things that are for a season of reason, and then other things are for a lifetime. So you have to know when it's time to say goodbye. So I did. I shook the dust off my feet, and my mama said, look, don't forget you're making almost $25,000 more. Take me on out to dinner. So you have to learn that in those situations that there's still something good that can come out of that. So how do we regain our personal power? Because for me, things like that deflated me. It attacked my sense of self-worth and my sense of self-esteem and even my confidence. And in some of those situations, I bowed under. Some of those situations, I kept my head down so I could stay out of the fray. I didn't walk in the strength and the power that I was born with, that my parents had raised me, and that I knew I should have. So what do we need to do? And then I'll close it out and have some questions. First, we got to take our power back by controlling our destiny. What do you say to yourself about you? See, you've got to be your biggest cheerleader. You've got to be your brand ambassador. You have to be the person that speaks over your life. So I had to learn, even if it means, and I teach a lot of people do this, go and put a bunch of Post-it notes together. Write down all the ways that you are great and wonderful and special and smart and kind and important. Write them all down. And if you have to put them on your mirror and look at them every morning you wake up, if you have to put them on the front door before you step out, so that you can speak life to yourself, you have to take your power back by controlling your destiny. You have to, again, get around the people who will say to you, you got it going on. You are smart. Here are the great things that I see about you that you don't see in yourself. Have that board of advisors around you who can help you dream bigger, see better in life, that are not afraid of your success. Controlling your destiny starts with controlling your message about you. Research tells us that 87% of the things that we say to ourselves about ourselves is negative. So we've got to change our own conversation about ourselves, because if you're negative about you and then somebody else comes along and cosigns, you believe it. Control your destiny. The other thing we need to do is get better and not bitter. I went through a bad divorce. I've been divorced several times because I don't stay around. When I see that you're not any good for me, I walk away. I was married to a pastor, pimping the pulpit. And I was a first lady. And I thought that certainly this is a man of God. And that means what? Morals, character, integrity, trust, commitment. And this man just ran women all over the place. And you can imagine how it deflated me, especially since these were the women who were standing beside me and along with me, singing in the choir with me, in my Bible study classes, and at the same time with my husband. So I can tell you that I was probably the first Annalise, because I thought about more than 50 ways to get away with murder. And I really could have had I done it. I'm telling you, I was thinking about all kinds of stuff in his food. I was thinking about where he was going to be, that I could run him over. I mean, just, we think about those kind of things. I'm being funny, but for real, you think about it. But I learned, though, through that situation, that I had to take my power back, that there was nothing I was doing to make this person make these bad choices. This is who this person was, and I wasn't going to co-sign. I wasn't going to stay there and act like everything was fine. I wasn't going to sit on the front row and smile and think and let everybody think everything was great. Nope, I am better than this. And I had to get better and not bitter, because bitterness could have set in. In a matter of 2 weeks, I lost almost 20 pounds. I wasn't eating anything. I couldn't sleep, couldn't concentrate, couldn't think right. And I had given my power away to somebody else. So you've got to learn to get better in every situation that comes, even when it can be at its very, very worst like that. For me, that was really bad. But I got my power back. And the best success and the best revenge that you can get in any of those kinds of situations is to keep moving forward and never look back, and to make sure that you stay true to who you are. So I learned not to look back unless I am telling the story of how I was able to move through that obstacle, to move through that test, and move towards the light at the end of the tunnel, towards victory. So I encourage you today that the only time you need to look in the rearview mirror is when you are looking back to see what I left behind and what I learned from that. How do I leverage the losses, the lessons, and the leftovers? Not only do you need to stop looking in the rearview mirror, but you also need to play to your strengths. See, I know that a lot of times we hear what we need to work on. We're not good at this and we're not good at that. But what are you good at? Play to your strengths in every situation. I'm never going to be an IT professional. I'm never going to be one that likes to look at spreadsheets all day long and calculate and do all the number crunching. That's not my thing. I'm playing to my strengths. And I encourage you to do the same thing. That's why we have strength finders now. And when you play to your strengths, you can stay in your own lane. See, I don't have to worry about what the person next door is doing or what the person down the street is doing, because I've got enough on my plate to understand what my why is and my passion and my purpose is to get things done, to live the life that I was created to live, because I am staying in my own lane. I don't have time to worry about your business. I don't have time to cut you down. I don't have time to sabotage your success because I'm working on mine. Investing in yourself, we talked about how important it is, and that is exactly what you're doing here today, and I ask you to continue doing it. One of the reasons that I got my PhD, I have an undergraduate degree, I got 2 master's degrees, I have a PhD and 10 certifications. Not because I wanted my parents to be proud, because they already were, and they came and saw me walk across the stage every time. Not because I wanted my daughter to see a role model, because I was a single mom and I wanted her to see me achieve the highest level of education. That was nice. But the reason why I got my education, especially my PhD and 10 certifications, is because I kept being told I wasn't good enough. I kept being told, if you take one more class, if you just go get this degree, if you just work on that stretch assignment, if you just take on this additional work, mind you, by people who don't have half of what I was asked to do, didn't have the degrees. So I have a PhD, and I'm glad I do, because I'm among only 5% of the country that has achieved that highest level of success. But it wasn't because I started out wanting it. It was because I wanted to take away all the excuses of people who kept telling me I wasn't good enough, I needed more, because of who I was, because of what I looked like, my gender, my race, my ethnicity. So I invested in myself, and I'm so glad that now that when I got my PhD, you know what they said? Ooh, you overqualified, we can't afford you. I'd rather hear that than to say you're not good enough. And lastly, in all that we do, ladies and gentlemen, let us be grateful for our blessings. There's something to be grateful for every single day. I know it's easy to focus on the negative. I know it's easy to be our biggest critics, but I challenge you today to shift your paradigm and to wake up every day, to go to bed every night with a gratitude journal on what is it today that worked well in my life? What is it today that I can really be thankful for? Because when you reinvent yourself and you become the master of your own reinvention, here's what you'll see. You'll live life without regrets. And that's what I want for all of us, is not to die at age 30 and wait to get buried at age 85. You will also live your life with purpose, and you'll live your life with passion. And most importantly, you'll live full and die empty. So important that everything that you were created to do, every gift, every talent, every strength, every skill that you were designed and created to do, that you develop and grow over time, it's never for you alone. What we have, what we've been designed to do, the reason that we were born in the 1900s and in the 2000s is because there is a group of people that's assigned to us on this earth that we're supposed to touch. And we're supposed to leave a lasting legacy so that whenever it is our time to transition to the next life, that at the end of our lives, we've lived full, there's nothing left for us to give. And that every person that came into our path, we were able to touch. And my hope is that when we transition, we leave this lasting legacy that the world was a better place because she or he was here. Thank you so much for your time this morning. Thank you.